Hey friends, Shar Hunt here. And today in this episode, we're going to talk about some of the other little known things that you can actually put into place to be your own security expert, which allows you to protect yourself beyond some of the more standard basic hygiene things that you may already be aware of or that you've seen on the internet or that you've seen in my shorts. So let's get into it. One of the first things that you want to do is to set up a separate secret email address for your more highly sensitive information. Things like medical records or banking information or financial information. Um, you don't want that to be associated with the same email that you use for all your other types of communications. You want to keep that separate. And the reason that you want to do this is to limit the exposure and the effectiveness of something like a hack or a phishing campaign. So using a separate secret email is to your advantage because again, it allows you to separate your more sensitive information and accounts from accounts that are tied to things that are more generic and more standard that are less sensitive and less detrimental to your personal information. So setting this up isn't something that's hard to do. What you would want to do is set up a separate email by maybe setting up a secondary email in your Gmail account or by using a private service that allows you to set up email. That could be something like Mail or um, uh, MailFence or Proton, which is something that I use. Um, those are also separate services that you can use for email setup, which allow you to keep your more highly sensitive information separate from, again, your standard communications. So, the benefit of having this separate secret email address is that you can attach it to your more sensitive accounts so that if you are exposed to any sort of a phishing campaign or a hack, it limits the exposure and the potential for your sensitive information to be included in like any kind of a campaign like this. So once you set up that secret email, it's very easy to put it into use. You simply go into your accounts and swap out the existing information in terms of email that you may already have set up in your account and swap that information for this new secret email um, and save that information within your account so that it's associated with this new secret address. So the second thing that I wanted to talk about is use of tap to pay, which can be beneficial because when you're going around to different retailers or when you're shopping online or carrying out various transactions that involve payments, you don't necessarily want to go around swiping your credit card everywhere. One of the reasons is once you carry out that payment transaction, the transaction is in their systems for a much longer period than just the time frame in which you generated that transaction. So the use of tap to pay is nice because within tap to pay, your credit card information is not shared. It's actually tokenized and masked so that the retailers have another token string of information that's associated to your card, but not your actual card information. So when you use a service like Tap to Pay, you're only giving over the information that is tokenized and provided through that Tap to Pay service and not your actual credentials, which means you don't have to worry about your information, your credit card information getting out there on the dark web and being exposed in some kind of a breach, which is beneficial. So it's easy to set up when you go in and you set up the tap to pay instance. You're just plugging in your information, you're putting in all the details of your card, and whenever going forward you are using a payment for a service, you have the option of either using your regular information or you have the option of using the tap to pay service to carry out the transaction and to give over, again, information that's protected. So, the next thing we'll talk about is creating unique usernames. Um, and you may be familiar with this because, usually when you are setting up accounts, you are setting up an email address and a username that's associated with that account. And in some cases, um, the creation of a unique username and a password is useful because your information is potentially exposed in breaches over the years. So having a unique username is important because it's less susceptible to something that is gained through a brute force attack. Because if you have a unique, strong password set up with the account, it makes it harder for attackers to, again, do a brute force attack and discover the details of your account because you've got this unique username in place. This is something like a service like Hide My Email or One Password or Proton, which uses um, unique usernames through a service called Simple Login, which is built into the service if you, I think, go with the paid plan. By using something like this, it allows you to create usernames that are unique, that are separate from your regular email address, but that also have this unique username that allows you an extra layer of protection. It's a stronger way to set up your accounts because, again, it allows you to have an extra layer of protection against things like brute force attacks. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is protection of your credit history. I've covered this in other videos and also in my newsletter. Um, and this is something that you can do that's very easy that you may not have considered, particularly if you're going to apply for credit in the future, um, or even if you're having to go through the process of doing things like a background check for whatever reason. Um, they'll go through a process of pulling your credit um, to give the approval for that line of credit or that access of information for various checks. So if you set up something like a credit freeze, it limits the access to your credit history information. And basically, it puts that credit information on pause, which means that if you have the freeze in place, they actually are unable to access your credit information without authorization. So, having things like a credit freeze in place allows you to protect your information because if someone is trying to do a credit pull to access your credit history information, they can't do so without your authorization. So, having a credit freeze in place allows a level of protection because if someone goes out and tries to set up a line of credit in your name, they won't be able to pull the information to gain the authorization to set up the fake credit line.